Hey guys, welcome to this video where we are going to go over the describe image part of the speaking section. Now I'm going to break this video into two parts. In the first part, we're going to go over some strategy and the overall structure that you need to follow to do well in this part of the exam, and in the next part I'm going to go over some examples and also some sentence stems or templates that you can use to improve your score in this section. So make sure you watch both parts of the videos to ensure you get your maximum score that you can. So let's look at what to expect in this section. So you are given an image such as a graph, a map, a chart, a table, or a flow chart, and you have 25 seconds to observe that image, and then you need to talk about it for 30 to 40 seconds. You get around 7 different types of images in this section, and it can range from a variety of images. You are scored on pronunciation, oral fluency, and content. You're already familiar with pronunciation and oral fluency, but on content, to score 5, you need to describe all elements of the image and their relationships and possible development and conclusion or implications. The key thing for you guys to look out over here in this description is the conclusion or the implications part, because that is what they're looking for in an answer that rates high in content. So make sure you always end your answer with some sort of conclusion or some sort of opinion, which is an indicator to the system that you understood the image very clearly. Okay, moving on with some practical tips. Now the goal for you in this describe image is for you to practice up until a point where you can talk about any given image for 35 seconds without pauses or hesitations. Needless to say, you need to have proper grammatical structures, which is important as well, but as long as you're speaking for 35 seconds without pauses and hesitations, that's the time when you do well in this part of the exam. Every time you have a hesitation or a pause in your answer, your scores go down. So keep it simple and have 3 parts to your answer. So you want to structure it as every answer, no matter what image you get, you want to break it down into an introduction, main body, and conclusion. So your introduction is around 7 to 10 seconds, your main body is 15 to 17 seconds, and your conclusion is roughly around 10 seconds. So as long as you stick to this structure and this time frame, you'll ensure that you complete your answers in time and you are presenting it in the best possible manner, and you're always ensuring you leave some time for the conclusion. Now let's look at what to talk about in each one of those 3 parts of your answer. So in the introduction, almost all the content that you get will be available either in the graph axis or in a label on the image or graph, and using that basic information that you see on screen, you should be able to piece together a general overview of what the graph is about. So use whatever information you have on screen to talk about the introduction. Now within the main body, you only talk about the key information that the image is trying to display. So if it's a graph, if there's any major highs or major lows, like those are the things that you want to talk about in the main body. Now if you get complex graphs, there may be many elements that are going on in the graph, and people get confused on what should I talk about. But no matter how complex the graph is, your job is to just look at 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 elements that really stand out and catch your eye. So typically this will be like a high point if it's a graph, or a low point, or any increase. You can talk about that in your main body. But make sure you always keep time for your conclusion, as we discussed, and within the conclusion it can be a short line just based on any sort of conclusion that you've come up based on you studying the image. This can even be a personal interpretation or an opinion of the image. So for example, if it's a random image such as an image of a flower, you might think, okay, what can I conclude based on looking at a flower? You can say that instead of saying conclusion, you can say, in my opinion, this is a very beautiful flower that everyone should have in their house. So anything like that where it's a personal opinion, that is an indicator to the system that you've understood the graph really well. So always ensure to end every answer with a conclusion in the describe image. Some more general tips is to not be too concerned about the content. So as long as you're speaking something on lines of what is presented in the image, you should be fine. If it's an image that talks about the weather in say Australia, as long as you're not talking about forests in America, then you should be fine. So just stick to the topic, and if you're looking at the graph and picking up pieces of information from that, it's very difficult for you not to score well on content. Do not pause for more than 3 seconds or the system thinks that you have finished recording, and we'll move on to the next section. So 3 seconds of silence within your answer and it moves to the next question. So be aware of having too long pauses in your answer. Obviously, if you practice this enough, this will not be a problem. But in case you do find yourself getting stuck, you just use a filler such as or just to ensure that the system detects that, okay, you're still speaking, but you don't want to get into this position in the first place, because every time you do that and your scores go down. But this is just like a worst case scenario where you can use this approach. Aim to complete within 33 to 38 seconds. So make sure that you're sticking to this time limit and your answers are completing roughly around this time range. Obviously, below 30 seconds and you are not given a full score, because you need to speak for at least 30 seconds. And above 40 seconds, what happens is an incomplete answer might get captured by the system. So you maybe continue speaking, but the recording stops. It stops recording a voice at the 40-second mark. So in general, you would just want to stick to completing your answer between 33 to 38 seconds, and maybe somewhere around the 25 or 20-second mark, you want to start your conclusion. Like if you stick to the time range that we talked about in the previous slide, you should be fine. And the last one is to have pre-thought of structures for the intro, main body, and conclusion. So if you come up with, say, sentence or phrases that you're going to use in your answer, it becomes easy to be more fluent and to not have those pauses in your answer as you're speaking. And in the next videos, we're going to go over some really easy to use structures that if you use, you should find yourself becoming more fluent in this part of the exam. Okay, now the number one thing to improve here in the describe image is simply by practicing more. Now, me personally, I used to struggle with this section a lot. I remember looking at graphs and taking time to analyze, okay, what should I be talking about? I used to have a lot of hesitations and pauses as I was giving my answer. But the more I practiced over a period of a few weeks, every single day, I saw myself getting better. Now, obviously, this time will vary based on how fluent you are currently. But just remember, keep in mind that if you're currently poor at this section, you can improve up to a point where you're speaking for 35 seconds without pauses, which is the main goal. So until you get to that goal, and you are finding yourself that, okay, I'm able to speak for 35 seconds without pauses and hesitations at a fluent rate of speech, you're not trying hard enough if you've not gotten up until that point, and you can improve. What I used to do just to get some quick practice, obviously there is practice material that is there within this course, but what you can also do is you can go to Google Images and type IELTS graph. The reason I put IELTS graph is because there's much more content on the IELTS than the PTE, and you just get a bunch of different images, and you can go through each image one by one really quickly, and you can minimize the amount of time that you're spending in practice if you follow that approach. Give yourself 10 to 15 seconds to study the graph instead of 25 that you get in the exam. So in the exam, you get 25 seconds, but during practice, what I would encourage you to do is take less time, so take 10 seconds. So when you do that, you're forced to extract meaningful information in a short time. And when you do get 25 seconds in the exam, it actually becomes easier. Now, this is something that I practice as well, and it really works. So if you find yourself not being able to extract meaningful information in a short time, make the time even shorter, so that it's like when you get more time, it becomes easier for you. It's like maybe going to the gym, and if you lift 20 kilo dumbbells every day, and then if you go to lift a 10 kilo dumbbell, you find the 10 kilo dumbbell is way lighter and it's very easy for you. So it's a similar kind of approach. You kind of make it difficult for yourself during practice, and in the exam it will get easier. Make sure to add some flowchart and pictures so that nothing comes as a surprise. You're not only going to get graphs, you can get any sort of image in the exam, so don't let anything surprise you. Again, 35 seconds without pauses and hesitations. If you stumble during a practice, do not start over. Continue till you reach the 35-second mark. I've seen this a lot where test takers are practicing, they will get stuck in the first 5 seconds and they will want to start over. But you can't start over in the actual exam. So even in your practice, as you're practicing, if you find yourself getting stuck, force yourself to like push through and continue speaking, because in the exam you're not going to have the option to start over. Make sure that you record your voice and re-listen and make a note of where you could have done better. So now that you know the different scoring parameters for the exam, you know that you're not supposed to have pauses and hesitations. So you can record your voice, and once you record your voice and listen to yourself, you'll be able to see objectively, okay, am I getting better? Was there something I could have done to give a maybe better answer? And that's where you're monitoring your progress and you know if you're getting better or not. Okay, I'm going to give you a bonus practice tip that is going to help you in the describe image as well as retell lecture, and this is something that I personally followed and I've seen other test takers use it, and they've said that it helps them a lot. So in your daily schedule, as you are maybe walking to work, or even if you're at home doing random stuff, you can pick any image. I'm just trying to find something. So you can pick any object and you can practice talking about it for 35 seconds, because it's the same skill that is used in the describe image and retell lecture. So like for example, if you take this case, I can look at this case and say, the given object in my hand is that of a case. This case is used to keep a webcam or any other small object. If you look at this case closely, you can see that it has a zip which can be used to open and close the case. If you open the case, you can see that it has soft padding which is black in color, and it can be used to hold many objects and give it a very soft cushioning. It also has a hard outer shell which can be used to protect objects. In conclusion, this is a very well designed case that can be used to protect your information and your objects. So that's just an example of how you can practice it. So maybe stop the video right now, look at any object around you and talk about it for 35 seconds and see how it goes. Initially you will find it difficult. Like I used to get stuck at this a lot, but I just made it a game for myself, and I tried to look at very objects that don't have a lot of detail. So I was to look at, say, maybe a white wall and talk about it for 35 seconds. And you might think, what do I talk about in a wall? But when you're forced to do that, if you can talk about a white wall or for case for 35 seconds, you're going to be able to talk about any image for 35 seconds as well. It's the same skill that is being used, and you've kind of forced your brain to extract information or talk about things in a short amount of time. So try this out and see how it can work for you. I used to also challenge friends. I used to tell some, like obviously people who were kind of supportive of me taking the exam. I used to tell them, hey, I'm taking this exam, and there's this one part of the exam where you need to speak for 35 seconds, and I used to kind of make it a game. Hey, do you want to try it? And they used to try it, and they used to struggle, and then I used to try it, and I used to get some practice as well. So maybe something to try as well. But if not, even at home, just pick up random objects and start talking about it for 35 seconds. Okay, so that's it for this part of the describe image. In the second part, we're going to go over these phrases, and I'm going to go over some examples, so you can see exactly how I would solve describe image in the exam. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon in the second video.